Um, Before anything else, let me just say thank you to everyone who keeps coming back to sit with me like this. You have no idea how much that steadiness means. And if this is your first time finding your way here, welcome. Pull the chair a little closer. I read every comment, even the ones left months after a video goes up, and sometimes those are the ones that stay with me the longest. So settle in. This one's for the Virgo. Now, there's a phone somewhere face down on a table, and it keeps lighting up against the wood. I noticed that before I noticed anything else. Let me sit with the cards a moment. I'm not going to pretend I have the whole picture yet, because I don't. That's not how this works for me. I shuffle, I breathe, I wait for something to feel heavier than the rest. And right now, the thing that feels heavy is that small rectangle of glass going bright, then dark, then bright again, in a room where someone is trying very hard not to look at it. Okay, let me describe what I'm actually seeing. There's a person, not you, someone connected to you, sitting in what feels like the end of an evening. The dishes are done, the lights are low, except for one, and they're holding a mug of something that has gone completely cold, the way coffee goes when you've forgotten it's there because your mind is 200 miles away. They keep the mug in their hands anyway. People do that. We hold warm things long after the warmth is gone. That's where this person is. And their phone won't stop. Hold on. I want to be careful here because my first instinct was to assume the calls were coming to them. But that's not it. Let me stay with this. The calls and the messages aren't landing on this person from a stranger. They're coming from the people around this person, their circle, the friend who checks in, the sibling, the coworker who somehow knows too much. They keep reaching out, and every single one of those conversations bends back toward the same subject. That's the thing I almost missed. This person has become a topic, not in a cruel way, in the opposite way, actually. People in their life keep bringing you up, keep saying your name, keep asking the same gentle, infuriating question. So what happened with that one? And this person has had to answer that question more times than they ever expected to. Let me notice their hands for a second. When your name comes up, they go still. There's a kind of stillness that isn't peace. It's the stillness of someone holding their breath so nothing shows on their face. That's what I'm watching. A jaw that tightens, a thumb that runs along the edge of the mug. The performance of being fine while someone across from them says, honestly, I've never seen you like that with anyone else. And here's where it gets interesting, because the people around this person aren't being subtle anymore. I keep getting this phrase almost like it's been said out loud in a kitchen somewhere. That was the best thing that ever happened to you, and you know it. Someone said that to them. Maybe more than one someone. And it didn't land like advice. It landed like a verdict. Like a door they thought they'd quietly closed, being pushed open again by people who refused to let them forget. Have you felt any of this from your side? That strange sense of being talked about in rooms you're not in? Let me pull another card. I want to check something. There's a card that keeps surfacing here, and it's the one about looking backward. 3 figures, cups, a sense of what was. I don't read cards like a dictionary, so I won't tell you what some book says it means. I'll tell you what it's doing in this reading. It's showing me a person who has started comparing quietly, privately. They've gone out, they've tried, they've sat across from new faces in new restaurants, and somewhere in the middle of all of it, a small voice said, "This isn't it. This isn't what I had." That comparison is exhausting for them. Let me give you a scene, because I'm seeing one clearly now, and I'd rather show you than explain it. A car, parked, engine off. This person sitting in the driver's seat in a lot outside somewhere completely ordinary, a grocery store, maybe. They've already shut the car off, but they're not getting out. Their hands are still resting on the wheel. There's a bag in the passenger seat, and whatever's in it is probably softening by now, and they don't care because a song came on in the last 2 minutes of the drive and they let it finish even after they parked. That's the kind of small, private surrender I keep finding in this person. They'll sit in a cooling car in an empty lot to let a song play out because it reminds them of you. And then they'll walk inside and be perfectly, blandly normal to whoever's at the register. That's who you're dealing with. Someone whose composure is real and whose cracks are realer. I want to slow down because I don't want to make this sound like a fairy tale, and it isn't one. This person is also stubborn. There's a wall here, a real one. Not the dramatic kind, the practical kind. The kind a careful person builds because being wrong about someone once costs them more than they let on. So even as the people around them keep saying your name, even as they hold a cold mug and stare at a phone they won't pick up, there's a part of them digging in, telling themselves it's better this way, telling themselves the people in their life don't understand, telling themselves a lot of things honestly that I don't fully believe, and I'm not sure they do either. Wait, no, let me go back. I said they won't pick up the phone, and I want to correct that because it's not quite accurate. It's not that they can't call you, it's that they've drafted the message. Do you understand the difference? There's a difference between someone who has gone silent and someone who has typed something out, read it 4 times, and set the phone back down face first on the table. This is the second kind of silence, and those are not the same animal at all. I keep coming back to that table, by the way. The face down phone. There's something almost funny about it, in a sad way. They put it face down so they won't see it light up, and then they sit there waiting for it to light up. We do strange things when we miss someone and won't admit it. Let me describe the room a little more, because the room is telling me things. It's tidy, almost too tidy. This is a person who cleans when they're unsettled. Surfaces wiped down, a coat hung up behind a door instead of thrown over a chair. The kind of order people create on the outside when the inside feels like it's slipping. If you know this person at all, you might recognize that. The neatness that goes up like scaffolding right when their feelings get loud. And here's a detail I can't shake. Somewhere in that space there's an object connected to you. I don't know exactly what it is. It might be small. A book you lent, a thing you left behind once and never asked for back. A photo that should have been deleted and wasn't. It's not on display, it's tucked somewhere they have to choose to look at, and they look at it more than they'd ever say. That's the part of them the people in their life can see, even when this person thinks they're hiding it well. If someone specific just came to mind, if a face arrived the second I started describing that phone, do me a favor and tell me in one word who it is. Not the whole story, one word. I read those. Now let me get honest about you for a second, because this isn't only about them. The cards keep turning back toward me with a kind of insistence about your own state of mind, and I think you've been doing the thing where you assume you've been forgotten, that you were easy to walk away from, that whatever this was, it mattered more to you than to them, and you've quietly filed yourself under not enough. I need to push back on that, because everything I'm seeing in this person's world says the opposite. The people around them keep saying your name precisely because they couldn't stop talking about you when this was good. You weren't a footnote in their life. You were a chapter the whole room read. That's why the friend keeps asking. That's why the sibling won't let it go. People don't keep bringing up someone who didn't leave a mark. Let me stay with those people for a second, the ones doing the calling, because they matter more than they seem to. I keep getting one voice in particular, someone close to this person, older energy, or just steadier, the kind of friend who doesn't waste words, and this person has earned the right to be blunt. They've watched the whole thing from the outside, start to finish, and they've watched the aftermath too. the forced cheerfulness, the dating that goes nowhere, the way this person's face changes when your name comes up by accident. And at some point, this friend stopped being polite about it. I get the sense they said something like, "You can lie to me, but I was there. I saw what you were like with that one. Don't sit across from me and tell me it was nothing." That conversation rattled this person. It's still rattling them because it's one thing to fool yourself in private. It's another to realize the people who love you watched the whole performance and weren't fooled for a second. Does that match anything you felt, or does it surprise you? Let me stay here a little longer because I think this goes deeper than I first understood. I assumed at the start that this was a story about regret. Simple regret. They messed up, they know it, they want a do-over. And there is regret in here. I won't pretend there isn't. But that's not the engine of it. The engine of it is pride colliding with longing, and pride is winning the daytime while longing wins the nights. You have to understand what that does to a person. In the daylight, surrounded by responsibilities, they're convincing. They tell their friend they're over it. They mean it when they say it in the way you can mean something at 2 in the afternoon. But there's a different hour. The one after everyone they live near has gone quiet. The hallway hour. When the footsteps upstairs stop and the building settles and there's nothing left to do but be alone with what they actually feel. That's the hour your name comes back to them on its own. Not because someone mentioned it. Just because I want to describe that moment because I think it's the truest thing in this whole reading. They're not on the phone. They're not talking to anyone. The lights are off. And something small happens, a song they didn't choose, a smell from an open window, a stranger's laugh that sounds too much like yours, and the whole carefully built day collapses for about 90 seconds. That's how long it lasts. A minute and a half of the truth every night before they put themselves back together and go to sleep. People who are truly done don't have that minute and a half. This person has it constantly. Let me pull one more because I want to know what's actually holding things up, what the obstacle is, why, if all of this is real, nothing has moved. And the answer is almost boring, which is how I know it's true. They're waiting for permission, not from you. Exactly. From themselves. They've built a whole story where reaching out makes them weak, where it means they were wrong, where it hands you a kind of power they're afraid of. So they're stuck at the edge of it, the message drafted, the people in their life practically shouting, "Just call," and they keep not doing the one simple thing. And I think I'm being careful here. I think they're also genuinely afraid you've moved on, that the version of you they keep talking about has already become someone else's. So the silence isn't only pride. Part of it is a person too scared to find out the answer to the only question that matters to them. That fear and your fear are the same fear, by the way. You're both standing on opposite sides of the same closed door, each convinced the other one walked away first. I find that almost unbearably human. And wait, something just shifted, and I want to follow it. I had this whole thing framed as them being afraid of you, afraid of your answer. But that's not the deepest layer. Let me go further down. The thing they're most afraid of isn't your rejection. It's that they've spent so long telling everyone they were fine that reaching out would mean admitting to a whole audience of people who love them that they were never fine at all. They'd have to be wrong out loud in front of the friend who called them out, in front of the sibling, in front of themselves. For a certain kind of careful, capable person, being wrong in private is survivable. Being wrong in public feels like dying. That's the real wall, not you. Their own pride performing for an audience that already knows the truth. I find that even more human, honestly. Let me be clear about what I am not going to do. I'm not going to tell you they'll call on Tuesday. I don't know that. Nobody does. I'm not going to promise you a reunion wrapped in a bow because that's not honest, and you'd be right to distrust anyone who did. The cards show pressure, pull, and an open question. They don't show a date. Anyone who hands you a date is selling something. What I can tell you is what the room actually contains. It contains a person who is talked about by people who care about them, and in those conversations, you are the recurring name. It contains a phone that won't stay quiet. It contains a cold mug, a tidy room, a hidden object, and a drafted message no one has sent. It contains a minute and a half of nightly honesty that no amount of daytime pride can fully delete. That's not nothing. That's a lot, actually. But here's where I turn the reading toward you because the cards have started doing that on their own, the way they do near the end. You've been waiting to be chosen, and I understand why. When you've meant this much to someone and watched them go quiet, waiting becomes a kind of home you didn't choose to live in. You check your own phone. You rehearse what you'd say if they ever reached out. You've given a surprising amount of your inner life to a door that hasn't opened yet. I'm not going to tell you to slam that door. That would be a lie about your own heart and you'd see right through it. But I'll ask you this. What would change in your week, not your life, just your week, if you stopped organizing your hours around a notification? Sit with that. I don't need an answer. They don't either. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do while someone else gathers their courage is to quietly gather your own, not to punish them, not as a strategy. Just because you're allowed to have a center of gravity that doesn't depend on whether their pride loses to their longing this month or next. Let me come back to them one final time because there's a last image arriving and I want to give it to you exactly as I'm seeing it. It's morning now in this picture. The cold mug from last night is still on the table. They didn't wash it, which for this neat person is its own small confession. Light is coming in low and gold across the floor, the way it does early, with dust drifting through it, and the phone is finally face up. They turned it over at some point in the night. I don't know what they decided. The reading doesn't show me that, and I won't invent it. But the phone is face up. After all those nights of it being face down, that small turn means something. It means a person inching slowly, painfully, toward the version of themselves that might one day stop hiding from what the whole room already knows. That's where I have to leave them. At the turning, not the calling. Because that's where they actually are. And that's where I'll leave you too, not with a promise, but with a truer thing. You were not the easy one to forget. You were the one they're still being asked about. You were the standard the people around them keep raising. Whatever happens with that face-up phone, that part is already real, and it was real before you sat down to listen tonight. Let the rest unfold at its own pace. Before you go, if any of this landed somewhere true, if you recognized that cold mug or that hidden object or that minute and a half in the dark, I'd genuinely like to know. Not the whole story unless you want to tell it, just enough so I know it found the right person. I'll be reading Take a Breath, a real one, all the way down. You can put the waiting down for tonight. It'll still be there in the morning if you want it. And so will you. That's enough for now.